thank you for joining us today. I'm Ed Marshall, and I'm the practice leader for the Global Mobility Services at the Impact Group. Today in our presentation, I'm going to be assisted by Amanda Hassler, who will be our go-to person if you have any questions. If you would like to enter your questions in the chat box, she would be the person to go to. And we'll keep track of the questions, and as we get closer to the ending, we'll review those questions and see if we can answer those. If not, I can assure you we'll get back to you with the answers to your particular questions. I thought what we'd like to share today is a little bit about who the Impact Group is and why we're asking you to give us your valuable time today to talk a little bit about the trends that we see and the challenges that we're facing as an industry. The Impact Group has a unique opportunity to be working in 3 different practice areas. As I mentioned, the global mobility, but also in talent development and career transitions worldwide as we provide these services to our organizations and corporate clients around the world. We have support in over 65 U.S. hubs, delivering in over 60 countries, and the capabilities for 15 languages. And as we look at the different trends today, I wanted to share with you, in some cases, why we believe in looking at our records and tracking the industry trends, that we can share with you where we see challenges and also share with you what we consider some of the best practices in the challenges that are facing us from recruiting and, above all, retaining the clients. On the slide that you're looking at today, you can see just kind of an overview of the different areas. We're going to talk about the current trends and how we see those changing, how they compare to maybe 3 years ago to 5 years ago. We're going to talk about the challenges in talent readiness and the roles that we play with clients, as well as what you as the recruiters and the mobility professionals are working with and struggling with in trying to get people to accept the assignments that are in front of them. The other areas that we're going to talk about would be the pressures on talent mobility, the challenges that we're against, and I believe that regardless of what organization you're representing or what sector of that organization, you will be able to agree with many of the statistics that we're going to share in realizing that it's very different each and every day as we go forward, as we face the challenges of recruiting individuals. And then share with you the mobility decision assistance, a tool that we've been using for years in assisting recruiters and mobility organizations in trying to make sure that people do accept the relocations. We'll share with you a little bit of the calculations that we feel very comfortable in assisting in determining a return on investment. And above that, looking at the value side of the proposition. Those of you that are recruiters, what does it mean to you? And for those of you that are in organizations representing the mobility side, how those factors, the value associated with providing additional services and support come into play. So as we move forward, we talk about the talent landscape and the challenges that we have. We know now the good thing is that people are hiring. Companies are trying to recruit the individuals needed to move us forward into 2014. As many of you know, the new job records came out in April and showed some pretty promising numbers. On a global basis, we're watching increased mobility challenges, in some indicators of a 54% increase in international assignments. Depending on your organization, you may find that many of those are short-term assignments. You may find many of those are training assignments, and yet we still find increased challenges with finding permanent transferees. So wherever you fall in that category, I'm sure that in the overall counts, you'll see there is increased opportunities. We know domestically that the activity is up. We also can tell you by certain clients that 60% of the new hires are, 60% of the relocations are new hires, depending on the actual corporate policies. But overall, again, according to ERC, in the transferees that took place in 2012, 2013, 37% are new hires, and that 63% are current employees being relocated. We'll talk a little bit later today about some of the cost constraints and how those dollars are being adjusted as tier and policy levels. But then we continue to look at the locations on the global side. The top destination, certainly the United States, is still there, and we've watched a little bit of shifting in the percentages after that fact. But the UK is certainly number 2, and China remains 3. However, the percentage of moves into China have actually decreased, so we'll watch that as it changes. Many have tracked the top 5, and in your organization, these 3 may not even be on your list. But in order to share with you the challenging locations and why people are turning down assignments, we wanted to share with you what the major surveys are showing us. Now, the pressures on talent mobility. The changes that we're finding, and we constantly are talking about the shrinking talent. Now, as much as job openings are up, I think anybody who is living in today's society will tell you that we're working with 4 to 5 generations in the workforce. What's making the challenges or the effects changes by industry, but regardless, there are 10,000 baby boomers leaving the workforce every day. So as we throw that factor in and people say, yes, but now we're creating more opportunities for the younger generations, our total Gen X workforce is only 46 million, so they alone will not be able to replace the baby boomers they exit, so we're going to see even more of a mixed workforce going forward, and the needs that workforce will have when it comes to filling positions, getting people to relocate, and getting people to change industries and increase their learning and their talent as we move forward in order to do that. The shrinking talent is a major issue. Not only do we see it in certain studies, but the PwC study of 2013, 89% of the CEOs said they're focusing on their leadership pipeline. So regardless of where you are in the organization, I'm sure that your corporation's not that much different, that the challenges that are facing us have, after a few years of a prolonged recession and minimal job increases, we're now faced with finding the right people with the right talent, and certainly to determine whether or not they are mobile and being able to move forward. We know that the greatest challenges facing the talent acquisition people continue to be that of finding the individuals with the right skills and how to get those people into the right positions and the right jobs. So one way is certainly local hires and finding the right people with the skill set. We've seen changes recently as well where companies are focusing more on training the individuals that they're hiring the right skills, and then training them to do the job is quite honestly something that we've not seen in the last 8 years. So it's a great opportunity for those organizations that find the individuals with the passion to work and to be able to train them to their unique skill sets. But now let's move on to the moving fear factor. We know as people are being asked to relocate that individual single employees, 15% single employees with an offer in hand are likely not to take the move, just based on the fact that there are things that they're comfortable with and things that they would prefer not to deal with. When we add partners and families into the assessment about, based on knowing what I know now, the likelihood of accepting a relocation, we move that total group of up to 35% of those individuals with job offers are not likely to take that. That always creates a challenge in trying to do that, and I want to share with you a little bit today as to some of the resources that we've provided to be able to identify how to assist the recruiting challenges and the mobility challenges for those individuals. And above all, every resource that we look at, whether it's the worldwide ERC or any of the other surveys, more and more focus on the cost-benefit analysis. How do we measure it? What's the cost associated with it? What's included in those costs? Less than 50% of the companies do a cost-benefit analysis. So as we get into this discussion trying to determine how do you calculate an ROI, in many cases we have to first try to determine who's turning down assignments, who's accepting assignments. When we look at the cost-benefit analysis, we know that from a mobility standpoint, domestic relocations in the last 6 years have gone up over 20%, as well for renters. and new hires as well as homeowners. It also increased another 20%, up to almost $92,000 for an existing employee relocating. So costs are significant, and getting the right person to move and to be able to put the talent into the location that's needed continues to be a challenge for so many of us as we move forward. Now, assessing the talent readiness. We've often talked about, and those of you in the HR side of the business and in the talent acquisition, the competencies. As you know, those are the competencies that you need to define in your skill set for your employees. Certainly not something that we at the Impact Group deal with. But once that's been determined, I wanted to share with you how we can improve that process and what we've learned from working with clients over the last few years. The actual characteristics that are associated with that could be everything from cultural to being able to determine if this individual is being considered for an international assignment. Do we actually assess how they as an employee will do, or do we actually look at how the family circumstances affect that move? So we have clients that actually do it both ways. Actually, we'll work on circumstances, which I'll share with you in a minute, and then go back and look at the characteristics and identify whether cultural training is needed for a certain population basis, or do I deal with the circumstances of being the family that's not suitable for the relocation into a global location before I deal with the employee. So a lot of flexibility in trying to match up what's currently being done in your organization to that of what affects your candidates or your employees. In the circumstance side, I wanted to share with you a little bit of the areas that we do focus on in the pre-decision in trying to eliminate those barriers that are thrown in front of the organization. The employee's career. Many times they will ask the recruiters the questions about their career concerns, but many times they won't. So as we do the assessment and they identify what they do know about it and their concerns about it, it allows us to have that conversation to empower them to go back to the hiring managers to clarify any concerns they may have about that. Location, everyone talks about how challenging certain locations are. Asking the question directly really narrows it down. Is that the deal breaker? Or is it something more associated with possibly the spouse partner career, or maybe the finance and legal issues? As the individuals are taking the assessment and the coaches are engaging with them, we're helping them prioritize what those deal breakers, if you will, are keeping them from saying yes to accepting it, or identifying and trying to remove those ones that are important to them, whether it be lifestyle, relationships, the family, finance, legal, location, or the employee's career, as to what are those challenges that are ahead of those. We know for a fact that as we work with corporations and organizations recruiting people, no two are the same, and we also know that the ability for people to share what the concerns are very much a confidential basis. And I wanted to kind of share with you what we've learned. Clients have asked over the years, what would you think about telling us what those issues are? We know immediately that as we explain to the individual candidate or the employee that the results of the survey are confidential and only the top line demographics are going to be shared with their employer, they will quickly share with us what their concerns are and how we can provide the resources to help with that. I can't begin to tell you that over the last 10 to 15 years, each and every time we receive a high-level executive and the company's recruiters have determined that they've identified what the mobility challenge is, why these individuals will not relocate, that's 180 degrees different than what the real issue is. Because of the confidentiality, we can provide those resources to help the individual make the right decision. How we do that, we complete an assessment, whether that be an assessment done by one of our coaches or whether it be done as an online assessment, and being able to focus on what that particular issue is and help prioritize on what is keeping you from accepting this relocation. and then provide the appropriate customized research, whether those are special needs, whether those are challenges for a spouse to find employment, whether they're just issues associated with being able to relocate to that particular area and some of the challenges they may have. Our goal is to provide that information back to empower them and encourage them to talk to the HR manager and to make sure this is the decision is the right thing for them and their family. So as we try to move forward and try to share with you some of those successes, I'd like to show you that we know a benefit of using these type of pre-hire and pre-move assessments. It allows the acceptance rate to move over to 80%. So a little bit of the chart I'll show you below is, as I had mentioned earlier, when we're asking individuals whether or not they are willing to relocate, we can find that over 50% were unsure about or opposed to accepting the relocation. But by identifying what those challenges were, we can move that into an 80% accepted, resulting in 80% of the people accepted to move. Challenges, no, but in many cases, unknown issues that they weren't willing to resolve themselves. And quite honestly, saying no and refusing the offer was an easier decision for them. But you as a recruiter, you're trying to get your first choice candidates, and we believe this is certainly a useful tool in trying to increase the first choice candidates that you're offered. Those of you that are on the mobility side realize that you're not always aware of the first choice candidates. You're aware of the candidate that has accepted the offer and will now be relocating. So again, working on the recruiting side, working in the pre-decision side allows us to first help remove those barriers in order to do that. Reduces obstacles. If somebody is saying, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to take it or not, by allowing the assessment to be completed and providing the research, we're able to move that last minute, we're able to help reduce any last minute declines. Saving time during the decision process. We also know that you as a recruiter are trying to determine how long from the time we make an offer until how quickly the person accepts the offer. We have clients that share with us that if we haven't reached out within 2 days, they will lose 60% of their potential first choice candidates. We have others that realize these are critical hires, and if it takes them 6 weeks, then we'll work around their parameters to get the 6 weeks. So regardless of what you track, regardless of the limited information or the massive amount of information you might have, we feel pretty comfortable that we can help you calculate an ROI that will help determine the successes that can be improved by addressing those issues within the family. Other areas that come back and the value that's added to it is we can also document increased productivity, that being the productivity that's increased from the employee themselves, if they're a current employee or looking to move into a new area, by taking away the challenges that are faced by the employee, whether that be from internal focus groups that we've analyzed with relocating employees to that of just creating less challenges for the employee to have to focus on, does increase the engagement. So the employee is more engaged in their new assignment and spending less time worrying about the support for the family. We can also document that by providing the assessment tools prior to the family physically moving, we can track that the family can move as many as 10 days earlier. Might not seem like a lot, but as many of you know, the sooner the family has adjusted, the sooner the family is in the new location, our odds of making it a better move and eliminating the potentials of the last minute declines certainly increase. Again, so we've been able to manage that. And above all, as we've talked earlier with the challenges from a retention standpoint, keeping the high potential individuals so that when they're asked to relocate again, they will go into that decision making knowing that you as the employer care and that you are trying to make sure that you are respecting the challenges that they have as individuals and from the retention side. So we want to make sure that whether it be the benefit of providing an ROI or the value of providing those type of services, that all of those pieces are put forward as we continue to progress through the system of the selection that you have as the individuals, where you're matching their capabilities and their skills, and then determining how to get them, and as we know, many cases, their family, to accept the relocation and to make that appropriate change. So I do believe that we may have some questions, and we'll see if Amanda can share those with us that we have at this point.
Sure, Ed. We have a few questions coming in from the group today. A lot of them are focusing in on the recent rebounds in the housing market and starting to see if that's becoming a factor of concern in relocation decision process, or if it's starting to wane a little bit with the rebounds.
Actually, that's a great question. And I can only share with you that the Worldwide ERC shared last year in 2013, identifying what the major issues were in comparing that to 2008. So in 2013, we ran into the number one challenge was the old location was in a negative equity situation, and the number two choice was that the real estate market was depressed. So ironically, if we go back and we say those two things have changed, because we know now that more and more homes have, more and more people are able to sell their homes as the market picks up. The things that haven't changed since 2007, 2008, the number three item is the employee and family resistance to the move, and the number five item is the spouse's move. Those two items, number 3 and 5, continue to be at higher percentages than they were in 2008. So as we watch the trend on the real estate move aside, where it becomes more possible for individuals to relocate, whether they've sold a home and now they're moving out and they're moving into an apartment as a renter, still two out of the top 5 categories are the same as they have been now for going on 15 to 20 years, and that's the emphasis from the employee and family's reluctance and the spouse's employment reluctance. So they're still very major, and as much as the real estate has been in the last 3 to 5 years, we're seeing that move away, which are bringing on a lot of additional challenges for relocation policies. But the main focus will still, 2 of those top 5 are still going to be dealing with the family and the employee. So hope that answers your question.
And it looks like another question's come in from a representative with a leading telecommunications company. He's asked, we give our relocating professionals a lump sum and allow them to decide how the money is allocated. Where do you see pre-decision support falling within a lump sum policy?
Another interesting question. The pre-decision tools themselves are truly should be part of the pre-decision prior to ever getting to the lump sum offering. So in that particular case, if you are offering a pre-decision tool, you probably want to provide that well ahead of actual offers, which would result in either a relocation policy or in a lump sum offering. However, we do have some that with their lump sums identify that partner assistance is important to them, and they will spend their money that way. In many cases, they have already narrowed down exactly what that is, so we're not getting a good assessment. We're trying to meet an immediate need of spouse partner dual career assistance or special needs assistance, which they have allocated at this point that they know that's what are their challenges, and they're willing to spend their money in that particular way. So from a total pre-decision, usually it's done before lump sum. Those who do receive lump sums may elect to use it if the need is great enough to do that.
Ed, we've got a couple more questions coming in, but we're tight on time. So we're going to respond to each question in a personal email shortly. But you can go ahead and wrap up at this point, and we'll look forward to getting in touch with everyone shortly after this call.
Sounds great. Thanks, Amanda. Well, once again, I'd like to take just a few minutes to thank you for your time today to share with us, for us to share a little bit about trying to identify the challenges that are facing all of our organizations that are associated with the mobility, as well as the challenges that are facing recruiting, and how to overcome so many of those issues. We'd love to work with you to try to see what your unique challenges might be, and I believe certainly one that we could share with you what we've learned from other organizations and helping identifying the disruptive talent mobility trends to beat in 2014. So again, we thank you, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. My contact information is there, or feel free to call us at the Impact Group. Thanks again, and have a great day, and thank you for your time.